Hey, what's going on, everybody, and happy Valentine's Day. Hopefully your Valentine's Day has not been ruined by any storms, although for some of us out in the plains, that has definitely been the case. But for most of us east of the Mississippi today, we have had really nice weather. Here in the southeast specifically, we've had very spring-like weather with the sun out and temperatures climbing up into the 70s. So that has been really nice to see, and you really couldn't ask for a much better Valentine's Day for most of us. Although those conditions will change pretty quickly, I'll tell you. As we get into the middle part of this week, I do expect some severe storms for a big section of the country before, luckily, as we get into this weekend, much nicer weather as a whole, really throughout the entire lower 48, although much colder temperatures as well. So that's the game plan for today's videos, to kind of talk about everything I just summarized there. So I don't expect a very long video today, but I'm going to give you the information that I think you need to go ahead and plan for what we will see this week. So taking a look at radar here, you can see we do have low pressure out here in Kansas. It's not hard to find at all. You can find it pretty easily by this kind of shrimp shape that you see here on radar, indicating this low pressure working its way up through the plains, and that is helping to cause a pretty good amount of rain here through the southern half of the Mississippi River Valley. Although once we get up here into the northern plains, we are going to get a swath of snow out of this going into this evening, and we will discuss that in today's video. Taking a look at satellite, though, again, not hard at all to find this low pressure. You can see it working its way up here through Kansas, and this will eventually really begin to pull northward and work its way up into Canada as we get into tomorrow. So those of us seeing those rough conditions right now out here into the southern plains and up into the Midwest, that will definitely improve as we get into tomorrow before round 2 comes and we get that second storm system that is likely going to cause some severe weather tomorrow and Thursday. So taking a look at temperatures out there right now, we do have some cooler temperatures out here kind of in the Midwest because of that storm system. You can see those temperatures further down into the 40s, but into the southeast today, really nice temperatures, really nice weather. The sun is out, temperatures in the 60s and 70s. Really couldn't ask for much better weather for February, but luckily we've been really blessed so far this February with these temperatures. It has felt like spring most of the month, although we have had little periods of definitely cool downs, and we'll get another one of those this weekend. But overall, we've been very blessed with this weather so far this month. Taking a look at those hazards out there, we've got quite the colorful map ongoing here across the lower 48. Still holding on to that quiet weather here, kind of east of the Appalachian chain into the Carolinas, up through the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, but a very different story out into the plains. We have a big swath of winter weather advisories, winter storm warnings, and even blizzard warnings up here into the northern plains. Then winter storm warnings, winter weather advisories covering the four corners, and then just a big old area of these wind advisories, high wind warnings, and even some red flag warnings down here into Texas. So a lot going on right now, and it's going to be very active really next 96 hours or so before we finally get into this weekend. So let me go ahead and run you through this first system, then we'll touch on that second system, and I'll make sure you know everything you need to know to be prepared for these. So right now, again, that rain is falling here into sections of the southern Mississippi River Valley and even up into the Midwest. But as we get into tonight, we're going to see some snow, especially up here into Minnesota. The Dakotas seeing some snow. So, nothing out of the ordinary for February standards, that's for sure. But definitely nice to see some snow up there if that's something you're wanting to see. And then as we get into tomorrow afternoon, this system really begins to pull up into Canada. So this is tomorrow afternoon around 1 o'clock Eastern time. And we have much nicer weather in general, but that next system is diving out of the four corners here, and that's going to create some problems. So we're going to discuss that, but just to show you these snowfall totals, this is why we have some of those blizzard warnings. That wind is going to be blowing, and that combined with 3 to 5 inches of snow here through sections of Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas, that's definitely enough to have those problems. So this is the area I expect to see most of that snow here into Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas going into tonight. So discussing this next system, though, I'll go ahead and give you the details on it. Excuse me. So I do expect precipitation to really begin to build in Wednesday night specifically. So I think most of Wednesday during the day we're pretty quiet here across the central part of the country, and still definitely quiet in the east. It's going into Wednesday night that I think those conditions begin to deteriorate. So this is past sunset. This is getting into the 6 o'clock hour or so tomorrow night. You see these storms firing out here into the southern plains from Dallas up through Little Rock, down towards Memphis, Tennessee, seeing these storms tomorrow afternoon, and there could be some severe weather with this as well. That's just one component. We'll have this low pressure kind of stuck in between these storms on this side and then the snow on the other side. So I do expect snow as well with this, and we're going to cover that as well, but I do think the severe storms will be more of a dangerous factor with this system as a whole. And then once we get into Thursday, this thing continues to ramp up, and we get another round of severe storms Thursday afternoon, likely stretching all the way really from the Great Lakes down to the Gulf of Mexico. We could really see a squall line here stretching the entire lower 48 from one side to the north to the other to the south, which will definitely be something interesting to see for February standards. But then again, like I said, we will have snow as well. So most of us are going to get impacted by this one way or another, whether that's severe storms, just plain old-fashioned rain, or snow. Most of us are going to see something out of this. As we bring this further ahead into time, going into Thursday night and into Friday, this begins to push further east into sections of the southeast into the Carolinas and the mid-Atlantic. So that will likely happen more into Friday morning, I think, than anything. We'll have this band of showers and maybe even some storms left over stretching throughout the Appalachian chain before finally clearing the lower 48 going into later Friday afternoon. And as you can see, as we get into Saturday, precipitation just in general is going to be hard to come by across the entire lower 48. So much nicer weather this weekend if you can get through the work week. So discussing some of those severe storms, tomorrow, this is where we have that first kind of area setting up shop. And, you know, I'm just kind of realizing this is almost like a heart shape. So there you go. You kind of have a happy Valentine's Day, a kind of sideways heart there for tomorrow. But on a serious note, I guess, we will have that threat of severe storms from Dallas up through Little Rock, Memphis, back down towards Baton Rouge, seeing some of those storms tomorrow. And then as we get into Thursday, that's when I think we're going to have the kind of climax of this system, and it's going to be a lot of people affected. We have millions here in this kind of yellow area, all of Mississippi, Alabama, just about all of Tennessee, up through Nashville, Louisville, Indianapolis, Columbus, Cleveland, just a lot of areas here under the gun. And to see a marginal risk of severe weather in February getting all the way up to sections of New York, that is very interesting to see, and really quite unprecedented for this time of year. Luckily, Friday looks a lot safer and a lot quieter, but we definitely have to get through Wednesday and Thursday before we are able to get to that Friday and the weekend. So showing you some of these ingredients where we think those supercells will pop up, just meaning those storms that kind of have the potential to produce most of the damage. We will see that, sorry, I switched screens there by accident. You see that begin to pop up, though, going into tomorrow afternoon on Wednesday, down here into Texas, Louisiana, excuse me. I have a frog in my throat. But as we get into Wednesday afternoon, we will have these severe storms firing here into sections of the south central plains. Then as we get into Wednesday evening, those continue, and we likely have even a nocturnal threat going into Thursday evening. Before Thursday afternoon, we get another batch of those supercells to potentially form here from the Gulf Coast up through Ohio. So we do still have some question marks, mainly depending on the instability. I think we'll have the wind energy to work with, but just the instability is kind of a question mark through here. So this could definitely uptrend. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see strong storms up here into Ohio even though you don't see much on this map. But nonetheless, if you're in that yellow map that I just showed you earlier, that's where you need to watch out and make sure that you're paying attention to those local National Weather Service watches, warnings, and advisories. So talking about the snow side of this, we're going to have a pretty big swath of snow here going from Colorado up through Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Chicago seeing some snow, northern Michigan seeing snow out of this. Overall, I think 3 to 5 inches is a pretty safe bet through most of these areas, although back into sections of western Kansas, eastern Colorado, 6 to 12 inches may be a bit more of a likely scenario. A place like Chicago, you're going to be closer right on that line. I think 1 to 3 inches is probably a pretty safe bet there into Chicago. So even if you don't see that rain, if you don't see that snow, rather, you're going to see the rain. So I think the bullseye, that's going to be right here over really the heart of the east, from Nashville back towards Atlanta, seeing 1 to 2 inches of rain out of this, and even up towards sections of Ohio where we see a lot of that storm coverage in the middle part of the week. So before we get to this weekend, we definitely will have warmer temperatures. You can see that in this red. Those warm temperatures continue before Wednesday. It's not hard to find this cold front that low pressure is going to set up shop on is going to work in here and eventually overtake these warmer temperatures, especially as we get into this weekend. So we're still warm here. This is Thursday afternoon. Then as we get into Friday afternoon, that cold front pushes through, pushes out that warmer spring-like weather. And then as we get into Saturday afternoon here, I'll back this up a little bit. This is Saturday morning. You can see much colder temperatures setting up shop, as well as drier, clearer weather. So kind of chapstick weather here for this weekend, I think, for most of us. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And then as we get into next week, I can just go ahead and show this to you. Let me find the map because I didn't really plan on talking about this, but I will. Going into next week, after we get into this weekend, I do expect likely another pretty large storm system we're going to have to deal with going through maybe the middle part of next week. Most of the models have been hinting at a pretty large storm. So we're going to watch out for that going into next week. But once we get through most of the severe weather this week, we'll have that quieter period this weekend. And then I think we're going to be right back to talking about another big storm system going into the middle of next week. So overall, pretty active pattern, but could be much worse for sure. With all that said, though, I hope you all have a great rest of your Valentine's Day. Make sure to enjoy it out there, especially if you have some of that nicer weather. Make sure that you're staying safe, too, as we go into tomorrow and start that severe weather threat. And I will make sure to give you an update, and I will see you all tomorrow for that update.